wine press.
In a wine press. And yes, this is a very sophisticated, very industrial complex. It's not someone's small vineyard up in the hills and a small little wine press that was carved into the rock, which is characteristic of the Judean hills and mostly the southern Judean hills. What we see here specifically and in the Nabatean territory in general are very large, elaborate, sophisticated industrial wine presses. And what that means is that there is large-scale wine production going on here. How large scale? This is about 4 cubic meters. Think of 4 cubic meters of wine, and in a single season, there are between 3 and 4 rounds of picking, of harvesting and stepping. Harvesting and stepping. The juice needs to sit here for about 5 days with the yeast on the peel in order for it to start the fermentation process. So you have about 5 to 6 days of this being occupied, but then you can empty the liquids from here and use it again. And we have very large wine presses all around the Nabatean territory. How many of them? We have 6 in Ovdat alone, 2 in Shivta, Chalutza, Nitzana, Huchebe, etc. They all have these wine presses. And this should be very, very weird for somebody who just a few minutes ago stood down there in the visitor center and described historical sources talking about the Nabateans, very specifically emphasizing that they do not drink wine. And how do we bridge this contradiction? We have historical sources that are very, very clear about this point, and we have this finding that's very clear about what it is.
They don't drink their product. That makes more money.
So one possibility is they make it, but they don't drink it. And even though it is possible, it is very, very unlikely. And the reason is, as opposed to other crops, as opposed to olives, for example. If you've ever grown olives, you know it's a tree. You have to take care of it once or twice or 3 times a year. But most of the time, you can leave your olives alone. And nomads, in theory, can have a small olive orchard and continue being nomadic, as long as they come back there once or twice a year, 3 times. With vines, that doesn't work. In order to grow vines, you have to be there. You have to live there. You have to take care of the vines. You have to trim them. You have to fertilize them. You have to make sure the irrigation system works if you have one, or that enough rain fell. You have to organize it, and you have to make sure there's a fence. Otherwise, animals will eat it. It's a mess. You have to be settled. And nomads cannot grow vines. And not only that, our historical sources say that they don't plant anything.
So these are
It's got to be wrong.
the Nabatean that converted to Christianity, right?
It's Byzantine.
Yep, exactly. So the historical sources that I quoted are sources from the 4th and 3rd century BCE. The structure we're standing in is from the Byzantine period, 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th century AD. There's a time difference between these two, and the fact that I'm using one source and then talking about this just reflects the passive time, and the passive generation, and the transition that the Nabatean people went through. And we already encountered it up there in that dedication writing, when we talked about Arabic turning into Greek, and Nabatean names slowly being adopted or changed into Greek names, and, the fact that there's a building there from the late Roman period. We're standing in a structure from the Byzantine period, and even though originally their ancestors didn't drink wine, and didn't settle, didn't build, and didn't harvest the land, their descendants in the Byzantine period are doing exactly those things. They adopted the customs of the normal world. Their ancestors were unusual. They, not so much. Now, in all of this, nobody asked me the obvious question.
What type of wine?
That's not the obvious question.
But
But I have an answer. I actually have an answer.
Did they have an irrigation system? Where did the water come from?
Or what you actually meant to ask was, how the hell do you grow vines in this kind of climate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of what you meant. And for that, I'm glad you asked. The answer's coming. So let's go into the fortress. When we walk into the fortress, what I want you to look is at how well fortified this building is. Is it really well fortified? Is it really a fortress? Can it withstand an attack from a big legion or a great army? And if not, who is it really meant for?